The letter trembled in my hands, its edges worn and yellowed with age. I hadn't meant to snoop, but when I saw it peeking out from beneath Dean's stack of bills, curiosity got the better of me. Now, standing in his study, my heart raced as I unfolded the paper, revealing a secret that would change everything. "Evelyn, where are you?" Dean's voice echoed from downstairs, startling me. I quickly refolded the letter and shoved it back into its hiding place. "Coming!" I called, trying to keep my voice steady as I hurried out of the room. Dean was waiting at the bottom of the stairs, car keys in hand. "I'm heading out. Dad needs his medication in an hour." "Where are you going?" I asked, unable to keep the suspicion out of my voice. He shrugged, avoiding my gaze. "Just some errands. I'll be back later." As the front door slammed behind him, I sighed and made my way to the living room, where Arthur, my father-in-law, sat in his wheelchair by the window. "Everything all right, dear?" Arthur asked, his kind eyes crinkling with concern. I forced a smile. "Of course. How are you feeling today?" "Oh, same as always. But don't change the subject. What's troubling you?" I hesitated, then sat down on the couch across from him. "Arthur, have you ever felt like there's something you don't know about your own family?" He chuckled softly. "My dear, every family has its secrets. But what's brought this on?" Before I could answer, the doorbell rang. I excused myself and went to answer it, finding Dean's Aunt Mary on the porch. "Evelyn, I hope I'm not interrupting," she said, enveloping me in a warm hug. "Not at all. Come in," I replied, grateful for her presence. Mary had always been a rock for me, especially since I'd quit my nursing job to care for Arthur full-time. As we settled in the kitchen with cups of tea, Mary studied my face. "Something's bothering you? Is it Dean again?" I nodded, feeling the weight of everything pressing down on me. "I found a letter in his study," I confessed. "I didn't read it, but, Mary, I think he's hiding something from me. And it's not just that. The way he's been acting lately, the secretive phone calls, the unexplained absences." Mary reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Evelyn, you're one of the strongest women I know. You gave up your career to care for Arthur, and I've seen how much love and dedication you pour into this family, but you can't keep sacrificing yourself for people who don't appreciate it." "I don't know what to do," I whispered, feeling tears prick at my eyes. "First things first," Mary said firmly. "You need to confront Dean about that letter. Whatever it is, you deserve the truth." Just then we heard the front door open and Dean's voice called out, "I'm home." Mary and I exchanged a look. "No time like the present, Jessica," she murmured, giving my hand one last squeeze before standing up. As Dean walked into the kitchen, his eyes widened in surprise at the sight of his aunt. "Mary, what are you doing here?" "Just visiting," she replied coolly. "But I think you and Evelyn need to talk. I'll go keep Arthur company." As Mary left the room, Dean turned to me with a questioning look. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. "Dean, we need to talk about the letter I found in your study." His face paled. "What letter?" "The one you've been hiding. I didn't read it, but I know it's important. What are you keeping from me?" Dean's expression hardened. "You had no right to go through my things. And you have no right to keep secrets that affect this family." I shot back, my voice rising. "I've given up everything to take care of your father, to support you. The least you can do is be honest with me." For a moment we stood there in tense silence. Then Dean's shoulders slumped. "You're right," he said quietly. "There's something I need to tell you, but you're not going to like it." As he began to speak, I felt my world tilting on its axis, knowing that whatever came next would change our lives forever. I stared at the pile of bills on the kitchen table, my stomach churning. How had it come to this? Dean's revelation about his gambling debts had left me reeling, but the reality of our financial situation was even worse than I'd imagined. "Evelyn?" Arthur's voice called from the living room. "Is everything all right?" I quickly shoved the bills into a drawer and plastered on a smile as I walked into the living room. "Everything's fine, Arthur. How about some lunch?" As I prepared a simple meal for us, I couldn't help but think about how different my life had become. Just 2 years ago, I was a respected nurse with a promising career ahead of me. Now I was struggling to make ends meet while caring for my father-in-law full-time. "You're awfully quiet today," Arthur observed as we ate. I sighed, unable to hide my distress any longer. "I'm sorry, Arthur, it's just... things are a bit tight right now, financially speaking. Arthur's brow furrowed with concern. Has Dean not been providing enough? It's complicated, I said, not wanting to burden him with the truth about his son's irresponsible behavior. Just then, the front door slammed, and Dean strode into the room. Hey, Dad, he said, barely glancing at me. I'm heading out again. Don't wait up. Dean, wait, I called, following him to the door. We need to talk about the bills. There's not enough to cover everything this month. He shrugged, avoiding my gaze. Figure it out. I've got things to take care of. As he walked out, leaving me once again to deal with the mess he'd created, I felt a surge of anger and frustration. How much longer could I keep this up? The phone rang, startling me out of my thoughts. It was Mary. Evelyn, dear, how are you holding up? Her warm voice came through the line. I couldn't hold back anymore. The tears I'd been fighting all day finally spilled over. Oh, Mary, I choked out. It's worse than we thought. Dean's gambling. He's put us in a terrible position. I'm coming over, Mary said firmly. We'll figure this out together. An hour later, Mary and I sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by bills and bank statements. The reality of our situation was laid bare before us. Evelyn, Mary said gently, you can't keep going on like this. Dean's behavior is putting you and Arthur at risk. I nodded, feeling a strange mix of relief and dread at having someone else acknowledge the gravity of the situation. I know, but what can I do? I can't just abandon Arthur. Mary's eyes lit up with an idea. What if we looked into assisted living for Arthur? Somewhere he'd be well cared for, and you could go back to nursing. The thought had crossed my mind before, but I'd always pushed it away, feeling guilty. I don't know, Mary. It feels like giving up. It's not giving up, she insisted. It's taking care of yourself so you can better take care of others. You're a brilliant nurse, Evelyn. The world needs you back out there. As we talked through the possibilities, I felt a glimmer of hope for the first time in months. Maybe there was a way out of this mess after all. Our conversation was interrupted by the sound of a key in the lock. Dean stumbled in, reeking of alcohol. What's going on here? He slurred, eyeing Mary suspiciously. I stood up, my resolve strengthening. We're discussing options, Dean. Things can't go on like this. His face darkened. What's that supposed to mean? Before I could respond, Arthur's voice called out from the living room, sounding distressed. Evelyn? Dean, I need help. As I rushed to Arthur's side, with Dean stumbling behind me, I knew that a critical moment had arrived. Something had to change, and soon. The weight of the decisions before me pressed down, but for the first time in a long while, I felt ready to face them head-on. The early morning light filtered through the curtains as I sat at Arthur's bedside, my eyes heavy from another sleepless night. Dean hadn't come home again, and the weight of his absence pressed down on me like a physical force. Evelyn, dear, Arthur's weak voice broke through my thoughts. You look exhausted. Why don't you get some rest? I forced a smile. I'm fine, Arthur. How are you feeling this morning? Before he could answer, the front door slammed, and Dean's unsteady footsteps echoed through the house. My heart raced as I braced myself for what was to come. Where have you been? I demanded as Dean stumbled into the room, reeking of alcohol and cheap perfume. He waved dismissively. Out. What's it to you? Arthur's face fell, his disappointment in his son palpable. Dean, son, this isn't right. Evelyn deserves better. Dean's eyes flashed with anger. Stay out of this, Dad. It's none of your business. I stepped between them, my voice low and firm. That's enough, Dean. Go sleep it off. As Dean skulked away, I turned back to Arthur, my heart breaking at the sadness in his eyes. I'm so sorry, Arthur. You shouldn't have to see this. He reached out and squeezed my hand. It's not your fault, my dear. You've been nothing but a blessing to this family. Later that afternoon, as I was preparing Arthur's medication, my phone buzzed with a text from Mary. Need to talk. Can you meet me at the cafe in an hour? Anxiety gnawed at my stomach as I made my way to the cafe. Mary was already there, her face grave as I sat down across from her. Evelyn, I've discovered something, she said without preamble. Dean's been making large withdrawals from Arthur's accounts. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. What? How is that possible? Mary slid a stack of bank statements across the table. He must have gotten power of attorney at some point. Evelyn, he's been siphoning off thousands of dollars. My hands shook as I flipped through the papers, the evidence of Dean's betrayal laid out in black and white. How could he do this to his own father? "I'm so sorry, dear," Mary said, reaching out to squeeze my hand. "But you need to know the truth. This can't go on." As I drove home, my mind raced with the implications of what I'd learned. How could I confront Dean? How could I protect Arthur? I walked into the house to find Dean pacing in the living room, his face flushed with anger. "Where have you been?" he demanded. "Dad needed his medication an hour ago." Guilt and anger warred within me. "I was out, and don't you dare lecture me about responsibilities when you've been stealing from your own father." Dean's face paled. "What are you talking about?" I pulled out the bank statements. "I know everything, Dean. How could you?" For a moment, he looked like he might deny it. Then his expression hardened. "You don't understand. I had debts to pay. I had no choice." "There's always a choice," I spat. "And you chose to betray your family." Our shouting match was interrupted by a crash from Arthur's room. We both raced in to find him on the floor, his wheelchair overturned. "Arthur!" I cried, kneeling beside him. "Are you all right?" He groaned in pain. I heard shouting. I was trying to come see what was wrong." As I helped Arthur back into bed, checking him for injuries, Dean hovered uselessly in the doorway. The contrast between his neglect and Arthur's concern for us, even in his weakened state, was stark. I turned to Dean, my voice cold. "This ends now. I want you out of this house by tomorrow." His eyes widened in disbelief. "You can't be serious. This is my house." "Not anymore," I said, my resolve strengthening with each word. "I'm calling a lawyer in the morning. We're getting a divorce, Dean, and I'm going to make sure Arthur is protected from you." As Dean stormed out, slamming the door behind him, I sat on the edge of Arthur's bed, my hand in his. The road ahead would be difficult, but for the first time in months, I felt a glimmer of hope. Change was coming, and I was ready to face it head on. The morning after my confrontation with Dean, I woke to an eerie silence in the house. My heart raced as I rushed to Arthur's room, fearing the worst. To my relief, he was sleeping peacefully. As I checked his vitals, I steeled myself for the day ahead. Today was the day I would meet with the divorce lawyer. I had just finished helping Arthur with his breakfast when the doorbell rang. My stomach dropped as I opened the door to find Dean standing there, looking haggard but determined. "We need to talk, Evelyn," he said, pushing past me into the house. I crossed my arms, standing my ground. "I have nothing to say to you, Dean. I'm meeting with a lawyer today. It's over." His face contorted with anger. "You can't do this to me, to us. Think about Dad." "I am thinking about Arthur," I shot back. "I'm thinking about how you've been stealing from him, neglecting him. He deserves better, and so do I." Dean's eyes narrowed. "You don't know what you're talking about. You have no idea what I've been dealing with." "Then enlighten me, Dean," I challenged. "What could possibly justify what you've done?" He hesitated, then reached into his pocket and pulled out a crumpled piece of paper. With a start, I recognized it as the letter I'd found in his study weeks ago. "Read it," he said, thrusting it towards me. With trembling hands, I unfolded the letter. As I read, my world tilted on its axis. It was from a woman claiming to be Dean's half-sister, the product of an affair Arthur had years ago. She was demanding money to keep quiet about the scandal. I looked up at Dean, stunned. "Is this why you've been taking money from Arthur's accounts?" He nodded, his shoulders sagging. I didn't know what else to do. I couldn't let this destroy Dad's reputation. But the demands kept getting bigger, and then I started gambling, thinking I could win enough to pay her off. I felt a mix of emotions, anger at Dean's deception, sympathy for the impossible situation he'd found himself in, and a deep sadness for Arthur. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked softly. "I was ashamed," Dean admitted. "I thought I could handle it on my own, but I've made such a mess of everything." Before I could respond, we heard a crash from Arthur's room. We rushed in to find him on the floor, gasping for breath. "Arthur!" I cried, kneeling beside him. "Dean, call an ambulance." As we waited for the paramedics, I held Arthur's hand, my mind racing. How could I leave now, knowing the truth? But how could I stay after everything that had happened? At the hospital, Mary met us in the waiting room. As Dean paced anxiously, I pulled her aside and told her everything. "Oh, Evelyn," she said, her eyes filling with tears. "What a terrible burden you've all been carrying." The doctor emerged, his face grave. "Mr. Thompson has had a severe stroke. The next 24 hours will be critical." As Dean broke down, I felt a strange calm settle over me. In that moment, I knew what I had to do. I approached Dean, my voice steady. I'm not going to abandon Arthur now. But things have to change, Dean. No more secrets, no more lies. We need to face this together, for Arthur's sake. Dean looked up at me, his eyes red-rimmed. What are you saying? I took a deep breath. I'm saying I'll put the divorce on hold for now. But you need to come clean about everything. To me, to Arthur when he's well enough, and to this woman claiming to be your sister. We'll figure out how to handle it together. As Dean nodded, relief and gratitude washing over his face, I felt the weight of my decision settle on my shoulders. The path ahead would be difficult, but I knew in my heart it was the right choice. For better or worse, we were family, and families face their demons together. The hospital room was eerily quiet, save for the steady beep of Arthur's heart monitor. I sat by his bedside, my hand gently clasping his, willing him to wake up. It had been 3 days since his stroke, and the doctors were cautiously optimistic about his recovery. Dean burst into the room, his face flushed with excitement. Evelyn, I've got great news. I've found a way to fix everything. I raised an eyebrow, skeptical. What are you talking about, Dean? He pulled up a chair, leaning in close. I've been in touch with a guy who can get us quick cash. We can pay off my sister, cover Dad's medical bills, and start fresh. All I need is your signature on a few documents. My heart sank. Dean, no. We agreed no more secrets, no more schemes. What kind of documents? He hesitated, then pulled out a stack of papers. It's just a small loan against the house. We'll pay it back in no time, I promise. I leafed through the documents, my blood running cold as I realized the implications. This isn't a small loan, Dean. This is practically signing away our home. How could you even consider this? What choice do we have? He hissed, glancing nervously at Arthur. We're drowning in debt, and my sister is threatening to go public. This is our only way out. I stood up, my voice shaking with anger. No, Dean, this ends now. I won't let you gamble away our future on another one of your schemes. His face darkened. You don't understand. If you don't sign these papers, I'll lose everything. We'll lose everything. Maybe that's what needs to happen, I said softly, the realization hitting me like a ton of bricks. Maybe we need to lose it all to find our way back. Just then Mary walked in, her eyes widening as she sensed the tension in the room. What's going on here? I turned to her, my decision crystallizing. Mary, I need your help. Can Arthur stay with you for a while when he's released? Of course, she said, looking confused. But why? I took a deep breath. Because I'm leaving, Mary. I can't do this anymore. Dean jumped up, panic in his eyes. Evelyn, you can't be serious. What about Dad? What about us? There is no us anymore, Dean. I said, my voice surprisingly steady. I've given everything I have to this family, but I can't keep sacrificing myself. It's time I start taking care of me. As the weight of my words sank in, Arthur's eyes fluttered open. Evelyn, he croaked, his voice weak but clear. I rushed to his side, tears streaming down my face. I'm here, Arthur. How are you feeling? He squeezed my hand weakly. I heard everything, he whispered. You, go. Be happy. A sob escaped me as I realized Arthur had been aware of our conversation. Are you sure? I don't want to abandon you. Arthur's eyes flickered to Dean, then back to me. Not abandoning, saving yourself. Proud of you. In that moment, looking into Arthur's eyes, I found the strength I needed. I turned to Dean, my resolve firm. I'm going to my parents' house tonight. I'll be back tomorrow to pack my things. I want a divorce, Dean, for real this time. Dean's face crumpled, but I steeled myself against the guilt. I'd made my decision, and for once I was putting myself first. As I walked out of the hospital room, Mary followed me. Evelyn, wait. Are you sure about this? I nodded, feeling a strange mix of sadness and liberation. I am, Mary. It's time for me to start a new chapter. I can't keep living in the shadows of Dean's mistakes. She pulled me into a tight hug. I'm here for you, whatever you need. As I drove to my parents' house that night, my car packed with a few essentials, I felt a glimmer of hope for the first time in years. The road ahead would be difficult, but I was ready to face it head-on. It was time to reclaim my life, my career, and my happiness. And nothing, not even the love I still felt for Arthur, could hold me back anymore. The call came at 3 a.m., jolting me from a fitful sleep. Mary's voice trembled on the other end of the line. Evelyn, you need to come to the hospital. It's Arthur. My heart raced as I threw on clothes and rushed out the door. The past month, living at my parents' house, had been a whirlwind of emotions and legal meetings, but Arthur had always been at the forefront of my mind. When I arrived at the hospital, Mary was waiting outside Arthur's room, her eyes red-rimmed. "The doctors say it won't be long now," she whispered. I steeled myself and entered the room. Arthur lay there, looking smaller and frailer than I'd ever seen him. Dean sat by his bedside, his head in his hands. "Evelyn," Arthur croaked, his eyes lighting up as he saw me. "You came." I rushed to his side, taking his hand in mine. "Of course I came, Arthur, I'm here." He smiled weakly. "Good, there's something I need to tell you both." Dean looked up, his face haggard. "Dad, save your strength." Arthur shook his head. "No time. Evelyn, in my desk, there's a letter, my will. You need to know." His words were cut off by a fit of coughing. A nurse rushed in, ushering us out of the room. Dean and I stood in the hallway, the tension between us palpable. "What's he talking about?" Dean demanded. "What will?" I shook my head, bewildered. "I don't know. I haven't seen any will." Hours passed in agonizing silence. Finally, the doctor emerged, his face solemn. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "He's gone." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Despite our complicated history, I felt a deep ache for the kind man who had become like a father to me. In the days that followed, I threw myself into arranging the funeral, grateful for the distraction. It wasn't until the day before the service that I remembered Arthur's words about the will. With a sense of trepidation, I went to the house Dean and I had once shared. He wasn't home, which was a relief. I made my way to Arthur's study, my heart pounding as I opened his desk drawer. There, nestled among old papers, was an envelope with my name on it. With trembling hands, I opened it and began to read. "My dear Evelyn, if you're reading this, I'm no longer with you. I want you to know how much you've meant to me these past years. You've been more than a daughter-in-law. You've been the daughter I never had. It's because of this that I've made a decision that may come as a shock. I've amended my will to leave you my stock portfolio. It's not a fortune, but it should be enough to give you a fresh start. I know things have been difficult with Dean, and I'm sorry for the part I've played in that. But you deserve happiness, Evelyn. Use this gift to build the life you've always dreamed of. With all my love, Arthur." I sat there, stunned, tears streaming down my face. The implications of Arthur's gift were staggering. With this inheritance, I could pay off the debts Dean had accrued, restart my nursing career, maybe even open the small clinic I'd always dreamed of. Just then, I heard the front door slam. "Evelyn," Dean's voice called out. "What are you doing here?" I quickly folded the letter and stood up, my mind racing. How would Dean react to this news? Would he try to contest the will? The thought of another legal battle made my stomach churn. As Dean's footsteps approached the study, I took a deep breath. This was it, the moment that would determine the course of my future. I had to be strong, had to stand my ground, for Arthur's sake and for my own. "Dean," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "We need to talk. There's something you need to know about your father's will." The tension in the room was palpable as I stood face to face with Dean, Arthur's letter clutched tightly in my hand. His eyes darted between my face and the paper, a mix of confusion and suspicion etched across his features. "What's going on, Evelyn? What's this about Dad's will?" I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the storm I knew was coming. "Arthur left me his stock portfolio, Dean. He wanted me to have a fresh start." The color drained from Dean's face, replaced quickly by a flush of anger. "That's impossible. You're lying." "I'm not," I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "It's all here in this letter. He knew about our problems, Dean. He wanted to help me." Dean lunged forward, trying to snatch the letter from my hand. I stepped back, narrowly avoiding his grasp. "You manipulated him," he shouted. "You turned my own father against me." "No, Dean," I said firmly. "You did that all on your own." Just then the doorbell rang. We both froze, staring at each other. After a moment, I heard Mary's voice calling from outside. "Evelyn? Dean? Are you in there?" I moved towards the door, but Dean blocked my path. "Don't you dare," he hissed. "We can't hide from this, Dean," I said, pushing past him. "It's time for the truth to come out." I opened the door to find Mary standing there with a concerned look on her face. "What's going on?" she asked, taking in our tense postures. "Come in, Mary," I said, ignoring Dean's protests. "There's something you need to know." Over the next hour, I laid bare everything. Dean's gambling debts, his theft from Arthur's accounts, the mysterious half-sister demanding money. Mary listened in shocked silence, her eyes widening with each revelation. "Is this true, Dean?" she finally asked, her voice trembling. Dean's shoulders slumped in defeat. I didn't mean for it to go this far," he mumbled. Mary turned to me, her eyes filled with a mix of sorrow and admiration. "Oh, Evelyn, I had no idea you were carrying all of this. Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "I wanted to protect Arthur," I said softly. "And I guess a part of me still hoped Dean would change." Dean's head snapped up at that, his eyes blazing. "Change? You never gave me a chance, and now you're stealing my inheritance." "That's enough." Mary's voice cracked like a whip. "Dean, you've brought this on yourself. Evelyn has every right to that money after everything she's done for this family." As Dean and Mary argued, I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me. For the first time in years, I wasn't carrying the weight of Dean's secrets alone. The truth was out, and with it came a sense of liberation. Suddenly, Dean turned to me, his face contorted with desperation. "Evelyn, please, we can work this out. I'll change, I promise. Just don't take everything from me." For a moment, I faltered. Despite everything, a part of me still cared for the man I had once loved. But then I remembered Arthur's words in his letter. "You deserve happiness, Evelyn." I straightened my shoulders, looking Dean in the eye. "I'm not taking everything from you, Dean. I'm taking back what's rightfully mine. My freedom, my future, and the gift Arthur wanted me to have." Dean's face crumpled, and he sank to his knees, sobs racking his body. Mary moved to comfort him, but I knew my part in this scene was over. As I walked out of the house that had once been my prison, I felt a mix of emotions: relief, sadness, and a glimmer of hope for the future. The road ahead would be challenging, but for the first time in years, I was ready to face it head-on. Little did I know, the biggest challenge was yet to come. As I reached my car, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "I know about the inheritance. We need to talk. Your husband's sister." My hand trembled as I stared at the screen. Just when I thought it was over, a new storm was brewing on the horizon. My hands trembled as I sat across from Sarah, Dean's half-sister, in a quiet cafe. Her resemblance to Arthur was uncanny, a painful reminder of the family's tangled web of secrets. "I'm not here to cause trouble," Sarah said, her voice soft but firm. "I just want what's rightfully mine." I took a deep breath, steeling myself. "I understand, Sarah, but you have to know, the money Dean was sending you, it wasn't his to give. He was stealing from Arthur, from the family." Sarah's eyes widened in shock. "I had no idea. I thought Arthur was trying to make amends through Dean." As we talked, a plan began to form in my mind. "Sarah," I said, leaning forward, "what if we could honor Arthur's memory and make things right for everyone?" An hour later, I stood before Dean, Mary, and Sarah in Arthur's old study. The tension in the room was palpable. "I've made a decision," I announced, my voice steadier than I felt. "I'm going to use part of the inheritance to set up a trust for Sarah. It's what Arthur would have wanted." Dean's face contorted with rage. "You can't do that. It's my family's money." "No, Dean," Mary interjected, her voice firm. "It's Evelyn's money now, and she's doing the right thing." As Dean stormed out, slamming the door behind him, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. For the first time in years, I was taking control of my life. The next few months were a whirlwind of change. I returned to nursing, throwing myself into work with a passion I'd forgotten I had. The remaining money from Arthur's stocks allowed me to open a small clinic in an underserved area of town. One evening, as I was locking up the clinic, I saw a familiar figure approaching. It was Dean, looking haggard and humbled. "Evelyn," he said, his voice hoarse, I need help." For a moment I felt the old urge to rush to his aid, but then I remembered everything we'd been through, everything I'd learned about myself. "I'm sorry, Dean," I said, my voice gentle but firm. "I can't be the one to save you anymore, but there are programs that can help if you're ready to change." As I watched him walk away, I felt a mix of sadness and relief. Our chapter together was truly over, but a new one was just beginning for me. Weeks later, I stood in front of a group of nursing students, sharing my experiences and the lessons I'd learned. As I spoke about resilience, self-worth, and the power of standing up for oneself, I saw the spark of understanding in their eyes. "Remember," I said, my voice strong and clear, "you are more than your circumstances. You have the power to rewrite your story, to choose happiness and fulfillment. After the lecture, Mary approached me, her eyes shining with pride. Arthur would be so proud of you, Evelyn. You've turned this difficult situation into something beautiful. I smiled, feeling a warmth spread through my chest. I couldn't have done it without your support, Mary, or without everything I learned from Arthur. As we walked out into the sunlight, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The road had been long and painful, but it had led me here, to a place of strength, purpose, and self-discovery. That evening, as I sat on my porch watching the sunset, I thought about the journey I'd been on. From a woman trapped in a cycle of manipulation and self-doubt, I'd become someone who could stand tall, make tough decisions, and help others. I pulled out Arthur's letter, reading his words one last time. Use this gift to build the life you've always dreamed of. Tears pricked my eyes as I realized that's exactly what I'd done. And this was just the beginning. As the last rays of sunlight painted the sky in brilliant hues, I felt a surge of excitement for what the future held. I had reclaimed my life, my career, and my happiness. And now, with each new day, I was writing a new chapter, one filled with hope, purpose, and the unshakable knowledge that I was exactly where I was meant to be. The end was just the beginning, and I was ready for whatever came next.